What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grindline Podcast. This is episode 58, and I am here tonight with Ryan and Tyler. How you fellas doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. Looking up the Red Wings numbers, and we finally don't have someone that wore the number 58. Hopefully that changes here in the near future, even though it's probably the worst number to ever have. But overall, I'm good. Got a beer. It's nice out. We just finally busted out the griddle tonight for some dinner and steak, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I mean, the Bruins lost last night, which is always a good thing.
Fuck the Bruins. Fuck them.
I got 2 baseball games on here, so I'm in the full baseball mode, I guess, if that's the way you want to put it. But I'm doing good. The weather's nice, and I can't really complain besides the fact that there's no Red Wing hockey on TV.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Chara left last night's game with a broken jaw, which is pretty interesting. He was wearing the fishbowl and didn't play at all in the third period. So, well, and that's going to be a blow to them. And let's see St. Louis win their first ever Stanley Cup. That'd be great at home.
Yes, please.
But we've got a few things to talk about tonight. We're going to go over a couple prospects that the Red Wings could get at pick 6 after the combine shook out. We are going to talk a little bit about a couple departures from the Griffins recently. And we have a couple questions from Twitter as part of a little mini mailbag. But let's actually start with the Griffins. Today, news broke that Libor Sulak will be leaving the Griffins to go over to the KHL. And if I'm not Russian, and I will preface this by saying that I am going to butcher the name of this team that he went to.
You still do better than we do.
But Libor Sulak has signed a 1-year deal with Severstal Sharapovets of the KHL.
Totally thought you were going to say Sharapova, and I was actually intrigued.
He went and signed with Maria Sharapova in the KHL. But he was an RFA for the Wings. He did play a few games this season. He was a great skater, but his defensive game was pretty lacking. We had someone mention this earlier. His lateral movement was not great. And he really didn't pick it up through the season. So I guess he figured he wouldn't make the lineup. Had to have had some kind of conversation with Yzerman and decided to go play for some money in the KHL. But along with Libor Sulak, there was news at the end of last month that both Harri Sateri is going over to the KHL and Jake Chelios will be going over to the KHL to the Chinese team. So what are you guys' impressions of the Griffins getting a little lighter?
I mean, for everything we've talked about in regards to a D logjam, especially in the AHL ranks, this is fantastic for them. And also for the goalie ranks as well, because we got Fulcher and Larson that are going to be entering their first year of their entry-level contracts. So along with, I mean, depends on what they do with Rybar. I would assume that they bring him back so they have somebody that's got at least some professional experience there. So they'll run with 3 goalies, I would assume. But that's huge for the younger crop, if you will, especially when it comes to whatever the Wings draft in the upcoming or pick up in the upcoming draft. If they go D, that gives them an opportunity if they are ready to skip over, if they're going to go juniors or foreign or whatever it is. So that's to me, I think it's good. It kind of sucks in the sense that we didn't get to see more out of Sulak. Chelios, I think he was destined to be the next Brian Lashoff, essentially. But other than that, I mean, it's not a huge loss for them in regards to depth or playmaking ability.
Yeah, I mean, the one that hurts the most, I would say, is probably Libor Sulak because, you did see the way he could skate in the preseason and even a little bit during the regular season. His defense game got really exposed. I remember going to a game against the Bruins this year where they lost 8-1, and I was really, really, really drunk. So thankfully, I don't remember exactly how he played, but I do remember watching some of the replay of that game. And, defensively, he's just not all there. So best of luck to him in the KHL. And, if he comes back to the NHL, the Wings do still own his rights. But, he's not going to leave the KHL to come back here and play in the AHL. Jake Chelios, good for him. Go make some money because you're not making it here. And unfortunately, he's not going to be in the NHL. It's just not good enough. And Harri Sateri, he's been a decent AHL goalie. He's just never been able to make that next leap to the NHL. Like Ryan said, it gives you an opportunity to see more of the younger players. and even players you're going to see, getting drafted maybe this spring, and you might be able to see him this coming fall in the AHL at least, and it doesn't really do much for the NHL because neither of those guys were all in the NHL. But it does free up some spots in the AHL, and that's important as well.
Yeah, Sateri looked good when he played like 10-game stretch, I think, for Florida, and looked good. And it seems like his numbers didn't fall apart, but you could tell that Rybar was playing better on the Griffins than Sateri was because Rybar became your starter. Rybar went on to play at the World Championship. So Sateri, I mean, if you're going to make more money going over to the KHL, go make more money. So I guess, yeah, the good point is that it frees up some space. We were having a D log jam, but with, I guess, now 2 defensemen leaving, I think Joe Hickett's, he might be the casualty of war. He's on an RFA deal right now, or he's an RFA now, but I mean, we're going to get Lindstrom in this next season and see what he can do. And I mean, McIsaac's going to be too young to play in the AHL.
I think to that point we were kind of talking about earlier too, Hickett's is kind of the one to watch to see what happens, because with Sulak gone, they've got, I'm looking at cap friendly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys that are shown as non-roster defense. But you have to take into account that they're likely losing Chalowski and Hronek to the big boys. So that leaves them with 7 defenders right now that are non-rostered, barring any free agency pickups or undrafted guys that they could bring in. And, I mean, if all goes well, then who knows if Koski's not going to get the Sulak treatment and be up at the NHL level those first several games. So they could be right at 6 defenders at the Griffins. So they're going to have to do something. I can't see them necessarily getting rid of Hickett's. I think it could be a good move in the sense if they're trying to trade away his rights with some picks. But with all those guys moving out, they're kind of tight on defense at the Griffins right now.
Yeah, because you move out Sulak and you move out Chelios, but you bring in Lindstrom and you bring in Kasky, and you're only getting rid of probably Cronwall on defense unless they waive Eriksson or find somewhere to trade Daly.
Or Daly, yep.
Yeah, so you're not really getting much lighter on the Red Wings defense to squeeze people in. So it's going to get real interesting real quick, and I think we'll see more movement towards free agency.
Yeah, right before.
Yeah, to see what's going to happen and how our roster might end up shaking out.
Kind of like the point that Max Boltman brought up in one of his recent articles, talking about Yzerman's kind of history when it came to the draft. And to that point, just seeing if he decides to make a move or a small move to bring in either additional prospects on D, or if he tries to wheel and deal to set himself up for going into the free agency period like that. Because just to where they're at, I mean, defense is, I would say, their number one shit show. I think we can all agree on that without making a move in free agency. So unless he plans on going after someone, I mean, that's the biggest what if right now.
The only way you go after someone is if it makes sense for the here and the now and the future as well. So like Jacob Trouba would make sense, or like someone like that. It doesn't have to be specifically him because he's from Michigan.
The price is right.
If the price is right, fine. But like, it doesn't have to be Trouba. If you want to be better this year, there are other options besides Jacob Trouba that give you an opportunity to make the D better now and in the future as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need a stretch guy. Like, and Yzerman said it himself, he's not coming here just to make a splash to try to make us a little bit better for right now. He's trying to make the team better for the future. So, like a guy, like you said, a guy like Trouba, and it doesn't have to be Trouba, but he's the name that's most linked because he's a Michigan guy and he wants out of Winnipeg.
But he's an RFA.
So you would be trading at this point for his rights.
Yep.
Unless you do some kind of sign and trade,
which never happens in the NHL.
Unless you're stupid like Ottawa with Mark Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't see giving up a ton for Trouba unless you've got a verbal agreement with him in place saying I will sign with you long term, which I think that's probably the most respected kind of take on it right now, is that he's a Michigan guy. he'd probably talk to Yzerman beforehand and say, hey, listen, I'm willing to come here and sign a long-term deal if you trade for my rights. Kind of like what just happened with Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes' rights were traded to Philly for a 5th-round pick.
That was a great pickup by Philly, by the way.
Yeah, as long as it works out. If it works out and Hayes extends with them, that's a steal for a 5th-round pick.
Absolutely. A guy that's putting up consistently 40-plus points. He's broke the 50 barrier before, and he's 6'5". I mean,
I think Hayes is going to want to test the market. I do.
Yeah.
Like it's not like baseball where these players they get a contract and they have to take it because they don't know what their next option is. Like Kevin Hayes is going to have suitors besides the Flyers come July 1, whether it be Boston or whether it be, a team out west or whoever. I mean, there's going to be teams that are looking to get better and looking to have a guy that's, would you say 6'5"? I mean, there's going to be teams that are going to be out there.
Today I was listening to 31 Thoughts today, Elliot Friedman's podcast, and he was saying that the Blackhawks may be interested in Hayes, because the Blackhawks are actually the team that drafted him. It's something that's interesting to look at. The other thing that was brought up today, and I kind of cringe every time I see it, is that there's talk that Karlsson wants to be closer to his home in Ottawa, and not with the Sens, because you know how horrible that situation was, but Detroit's name was mentioned because Detroit, they say, is closer to winning a cup than Ottawa or Montreal, and it would be closer to his home. And me and Tyler kind of went back and forth on it, and I don't think I'm willing to give Karlsson the 10 to 10.5 million with term he's going to want.
Take about $3 million off that, and I would play.
But he's not. He wouldn't do it. He'll sign for 10 somewhere. Drew Doughty got, 10 million, right?
The difference between Doughty and Karlsson is huge. I mean, Doughty's a shutdown guy. He's played in playoffs. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's won a gold medal in the Olympics. Like, what has Karlsson done? I mean, I know Doughty, he's got the 2 Norris trophies. So yes, he's got the 2 Norris trophies. I kind of bite my tongue a little bit saying he's injury prone. I guess it was just this year. But, like, he's not your typical shutdown defenseman. He's not your typical – I mean, he is a number 1 because he's a 4th forward out there, to say the least. And he's unbelievable offensively. But defensively, I just do not see him there.
But Tyler, he's still going to be better defensively than 90% of our defensemen.
Okay, so that's why I would take him. That's exactly why I would take him, but not at 10 a year. I would take him at 8.5 a year.
I wouldn't. I would do that. If it's 8.5 and below, which is going to be a hell of a stretch or whatever, I would say yes. But I mean, just for reference, Doughty's making 11.
Yeah, Doughty's making 11 a year.
That's
okay, but where do you see him signing if he wants 10 million a year? He's going to have to go to a team that's like the Red Wings, where they're not quite there to win yet, but they have, well, I guess some cap space.
Oh, we've got cap space. I mean, we're going to go into free agency with probably about 16 million in cap space,
which is pretty good.
Which is excellent. 16 million or more. But as far as Karlsson's achievements go, he was an all-star in 2011, 2012, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. He won the Norris in 2012 and 15. He was NHL first-team All-Star in 2012, 2015, 2016, and 2017. And he won the Viking Award in 2012, 2016, and 2017.
What the hell's the Viking Award?
I am glad you asked me what the Viking Award is. The Viking Award is awarded annually to the best Swedish ice hockey player in North America, as decided by a vote among all Swedish-born players in the NHL.
So how many does Nick Lidstrom have?
What I know is that the top, only Mats Sundin has received the award 4 times. Peter Forsberg, Marcus Naslund, Bjorn Selmig, Henrik Zetterberg, and Erik Karlsson have received it 3 times. I don't think Lidstrom won the award 1 time.
What?
In 2005, 2006. Zetterberg won it the 2 years after him.
So cup.
And then Zetterberg won it again in 2012, 2013.
which is the last time the Wings were actually truly relevant.
Yeah.
Last season, William Karlsson won it.
That makes sense.
Ryan, the last time they were irrelevant was the last year of Babcock, where they lost in the first round in Game 7. That was the last time
against Chicago.
No, against Tampa Bay, where they lost in Game 7. They had a chance to.
13. We're with Peter.
Yes.
So that was 13.
I didn't even know this award was a thing.
I don't either. It makes me very happy that especially because it's called Viking.
Why have they never talked about this?
Because it's not an NHL award, so they don't care.
Oh, wait, Tyler. He was also the World Junior Under-18 Best Defenseman in 2008, the World Junior All-Star in 2009, World Junior Best Defenseman in 2009, Olympic All-Star Team in 2014, and Olympic Best Defenseman in 2014.
Greg, must I send you the video of him getting walked?
Oh, I've seen him get walked several.
He gets walked all the time, and that's why I'm not saying he's not really good or even great. He's just not great defensively, and he's not even in the same stratosphere as Drew Doughty defensively.
You're arguing it to me, who I had said I'm nervous taking him, and the reason that I'm nervous taking him is because he's missing part of his ankle. Now, he's not injury prone per se. Before last season, he misses like an average of like 8 or 9 games generally a season, but last season he only played 55. So next year is a really telling season, because if he only plays another 55 games next year, then you could say he's out for 20 something games, 30 games a year because of his bad ankle. So I'm half and half there with that. But if you're going to get him and he'll say, I want to be closer to Ottawa, I don't want to play for Montreal, I don't want to play for Ottawa again.
I wouldn't see him wanting to go to Canada at all.
I'll take 9.5 to go to Detroit. At that point, with the cap creep up every year, I might be inclined to do it.
I mean, there's no question he's still going to be your number one scoring top defenseman. And then my thought
he's going to score more than 60% of your forwards.
Oh, absolutely. Well, with the current batch of forwards, yeah.
He'll also make the forwards a lot better, which is one thing that we've been looking for, and we thought Mike Green was going to do, which he kind of has.
But Mike Green's pretty much dead.
But yeah, exactly, and that's
when he's healthy, he's still doing that though. And then you add in Hronek, who finally came into his own those last 15, 20 games. And then you have Cholowski coming in, depending on who they end up picking. If you add him to those couple guys right there, you've got the ability to roll 3 deep lines. And then Bowie, I thought he really picked it up to close out the season as a kind of a two-way defender. I mean, there's a lot of mobility that could be there. You're not having to rely on Karlsson to be back there playing defense. You just put him in there to go score a fucking goal.
Yeah, your lines would be Karlsson, Hronek, Green, Cholowski, DeKeyser, Bowie, and then Eriksson's your extra, or Kasky. It actually would probably end up being, if Kasky is good, your last line would be DeKeyser, Kasky, and then Bowie would be your extra defenseman.
I'd be good with that, to be quite honest. I was playing around in Cap Friendly today just without making any free agency splashes and whatnot. Honestly, the Wings defense, I mean, I say this cautiously.
Very lightly.
Yes. Could be decent. I'm not gonna go with good yet.
Okay.
Decent. An okay.
Better than we've seen in the last 8 years.
Not
8
geriatric.
Years.
Well,
no, maybe not.
The first thing you notice is that wouldn't be a geriatric bunch.
Yeah.
Because
you're saying it'd be like putting lipstick on a pig.
Maybe like a poodle.
Okay.
Well, I'll take that rather than Cronwall crawling across the ice. So
yeah, you'd be.
Do we have any insight on if he's coming back or not?
No.
The Diggers are quiet.
There's been no news on a Cronwall contract or anything recently.
There hasn't been much of anything.
No, and that's why I just sit and I hit refresh on Twitter and I wait, hit refresh on Twitter and I wait. There's nothing. It's radio silence on the Red Wings front.
Like even from Max and Craig, it's been pretty quiet. Other than coverage from the Worlds and the juniors, there hasn't been much that's come out about any off-season programs of guys. I mean, granted, there could be things coming. I don't know. I'm not their buds and talking to their ears off and whatnot. But I think in comparison to years past, the Like Colfin, he finally posted today about Datsuk not likely returning.
Oh yeah, we knew that wasn't going to happen.
I know, but with like current players, typically we've heard more about like their off-season workout programs or things that have been going on with what they've been doing training wise. I mean, there hasn't. I feel like I've hardly seen shit.
It's a little early, and the World Championship just ended. They just ended, so those players.
The combine just ended too.
True.
Those players are going to take a little bit, go on vacation or whatever, and then you'll see them, throughout the summer on Instagram and social media and what have you.
So do you guys want to go to the couple questions we got from Twitter next, or do you want to talk about the draft prospects?
Let's do the questions last.
Yeah. You do the questions last? All right.
Do you want to talk about prospects first?
I mean,
do you want to discuss the Cup Finals as well?
I mean, we can talk about it. Series is tied 2-2. We're going Gloria all the way to the end.
Goddamn
Boston.
Right.
Pretty sure Chara's jaw is broken, that he's probably going to be out the rest of the playoffs. So
I thought he died.
Yeah, I mean, he came back and you could see blood like all over his face, and he was wearing the fishbowl, and it was a sad in parentheses look, but
you mean quotation?
I'm really hoping. No, parentheses in little. It was a look, but next to it was sad because it's Chara. I mean, he's just an old guy.
Kid.
So, I mean, I think all of us are on the Blues train, right?
Oh, absolutely. I hate both teams. Don't get me wrong. Mainly because I hate St. Louis just from the years of playing Detroit in the Central. But there's a special place in hell for Boston. So.
Yeah, especially after they partnered with Barstool. But we will go on. Are we taking questions or are we talking prospects?
I think we're talking prospects.
Fucking talking prospects. Let's do this. So the Red Wings will be picking at 6. The combine happened recently. It ended on Sunday. And there have been little trickles of news coming out of it. I think one of my favorites is we've got another hot quote from a prospect where Cole Caufield was asked what happens if the Red Wings don't pick you, and I think his response was, then they'll regret it. So
don't make me hate you, Mr. America.
So then there was an article that came out that said like the attitude of Zadina with the skills of Larkin.
Was that our favorite? Was that Helene?
I think it was Helene, just because people kept asking her, where's Caufield? Where's Caufield? She put out an article about Caufield, just trying to blow smoke up our ass. But Caufield, we have 2, I think, possible picks at 6. If both Bow and Byram, who I believe will go at 4 or 5, and Turcotte, which I believe will go at 3 to Chicago. If both of them are gone, you are looking at either Cole Caufield or Trevor Zegras. And I have been watching tape on both of them, and I think we'll start with Zegras. And the thing that jumped out to me most of all, I believe, was just his he has insane playmaking ability. He's got a good shot, but he has insane playmaking ability. I think one of the things people use to describe him was he has what they call 360-degree vision, which meaning he knows where everyone is on the ice at all times.
He's kind of like that guy you don't want to play on NHL 19, where he just pulls shit out of his ass, and then all of a sudden he's got a puck to somebody else and scoring.
He knows all the stick combinations for every deke, and he uses them all at one time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
you're sitting there hitting right bumper trying to get the puck away from him, and you take a penalty.
I think Tyler out of instinct's trying to not throw a controller right now.
Yeah, so it's.
Let's not go there.
Zegras is, and if you can go on YouTube, if you're watching or if you're listening to us on YouTube, I'm going to put the links in the bottom, in the comments or the description section to the highlight packages. But Zegras, he can shoot, but his setup ability is insane. He will do a no-look backhand pass past two defenders directly on the tape of the person he was trying to get it to. And it's not that he just does it once or twice. He does it consistently and so consistently that it's scary.
And the thing about that is he'll do that, but right before that, he's taken a pass that might be behind him that he'll flick off his skate from behind him through his legs to his stick, and then it's going the other way.
And again, he just doesn't do this once. He does this 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a season. And it's just it's beautiful to watch. And I understand that they're kids playing against kids and the goalies aren't that great and the defenders aren't that great, but like he has that hockey IQ and that sense of where everyone is to be able to make plays, which is something we are missing past like Dylan Larkin on this team.
I think, yeah, him and Bertuzzi, I think, are the only two that you could really put into the category of holy shit, did they just do that?
Well, I've seen Mantha do it a few times, but not consistently enough for me to say Mantha's an amazing playmaker.
Well,
he did it the most at the Worlds.
Yes,
Mantha. But like to Zegras, Tyler, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, I guess like the biggest thing is like, do you think it at this point in time? I guess you do take best player available, but there is kind of a debate. Do you want to take the playmaker or do you want to take a guy that could score potentially 40, 50 goals?
Well, that's who we're going to talk about.
That's really
next.
what it comes down to. Yeah, and right. That's why I said the player and not his name. But the fact that he had 61 assists in the U.S. under 18, and the fact that he's going to a great school like Boston University, is going to get to play there for at least 1 year. It's
calm your boner down over there, Mr. Boston.
Well,
is that a paid advertisement for BU right there?
No, it's really not, because they weren't that good last year.
Do I have to insert like their fight song in the background of this clip or something?
Right as he starts talking about Boston, just throw it right in there.
No, just like I said, the fact that he's a good playmaker, and if you think that we need more playmakers, then you take him, and I guess we can discuss the other player after.
So Zegras, go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, to that point of needing more playmakers, that's where you kind of hope that for what Hirose showed us in his short time, is he going to be that type of player? Do you keep adding to that guys that can make the play of, oh my God, did you just do that? Kind of like we were just talking about, or do you go for the fancy, I can score all the goals like Zadina wants to?
See, I think with Hirose, I didn't look at his tape because he was an undrafted guy. Mm-hmm. I didn't look at his tape to see what he had done at state and what he had done in juniors. And I guess I'd have to go back and look and see where, because I don't even think he was ranked to be drafted. I need to see Hirose for more than a couple weeks.
And not
I need to see him. Yeah, I need to see him in probably 15, 20 games at the beginning of the season on a consistent like second line to see what he can do as far as playmaker wise. But in what I've seen of him, I feel it's promising. But then whenever I go and say something, everyone tells me to pump the brakes. So.
I'm pretty. I mean, for what Detroit has done, the last several years of getting the random college free agent, there hasn't been very many. I mean, the most prominent one you can think about is DeKaiser, but the way Hirose came in from game one and made an impact on a top six line, the way he was playing at Michigan State, he was one of the top point getters in all of NCAA hockey. So I think that's something that you got to kind of bank on, and I think it gives you a little more flexibility to go away from the playmaking type and go toward the scorers, if you will. Is Hirose? He's just strictly a winger, though, right? Or is he a centerman?
No, he's a winger.
Yeah,
he's a winger only. Yeah.
Winger. Okay, so you're still hurting in the sense that you're not picking up a top end center, and Zegras could kind of fill both the center or wing role. And the biggest thing about him too, from what I was watching, that guy was on the ice for a lot of the Hughes, especially for the U18s Worlds. Are you all right over there, Tyler?
Miggy just hit a grand slam.
Oh. Can you retire now?
Yeah.
Sorry, this isn't a Tigers podcast, but
sounded like if we didn't have video going on right now, I'd be kind of concerned about what the hell was going on behind the mic.
He's not as good as he used to be, obviously, but to see him hit a grand slam at this stage of his career, that's pretty good, impressive. All right, sorry.
That was worth it. Just the noise. But anyway, I don't even know what the hell I was talking about, because freaking Tyler got me all flustered. So
Well, I think that the thing is if Joe Veleno develops like we think he's going to develop, you could have your second line playmaking center. So take a guy like Zegras. You've got two possible real good picks down the middle behind Dylan Larkin, which is not a bad thing to have.
No, I mean you need that.
But the stats on Zegras, he is 6 foot, 174 pounds. He had 87 points for the U.S. national under-18 team in 60 games. That's 26 goals and 61 assists. So 87 and 60 is not bad. It's actually really good, and that's why he's a top-end prospect. But my pick at 6 is Cole Caufield. Now,
if he's there,
Caufield will be there.
You think so?
Yeah, because my Mach 5 is Hughes, Kakko,
which
Turcotte.
Really you could take those either way.
Yeah, Hughes, Kakko, Turcotte, and then Byram and probably Zegras, but Doc could go up there. I think Doc is mocked at 5.
So I've seen him pretty high, on most.
What do you think of Podkolzin?
I think he's going to drop out of the top 10, honestly. But I think...
Why do you say that? Because of the possibility of him not coming over to North... Well, yeah, he's got a KHL contract for next year.
He does, but
right?
He showed up at the Combine. And
I like he worked from the Combine, to be honest.
And he said at the Combine that his dream is to play in the NHL. He's just not going to do it until after his contract is up.
He's only got 1 year, right?
No, KHL? 2.
He's got 2 years remaining on his contract, but
people are saying his season did not end very well.
So it's like the
Kuznetsov in the second best league in the world.
It's like the Kuznetsov thing. The Capitals didn't get him over to North America for like a few years.
It's like most of the Russians.
It's like a lot of Russian players. Yeah. But we're going to talk about my guy Cole Caufield, who is a 5'7", 163 pounds, which that apparently is giving a lot of people pause, saying he's short, he sucks, which I don't think are two things you can put together.
Have you watched Johnny Gaudreau play hockey?
Have you watched Alex DeBrincat play hockey?
Weird.
There's a lot of shorter guys in the league now. Have you watched Torrey Krug play hockey? Like, the height really doesn't have much. If anything, them being shorter and lighter makes them more elusive. Sure, they might get bumped off the puck more, but if they're fast enough, the people trying to bump them up aren't going to touch them.
Nope. Especially
There's
when
a lot of decent short players nowadays. I mean,
exactly. The league is just becoming more skilled.
Yes.
It's not like back in the day when Martin St. Louis was like the only small guy, and he was dominant.
And he was still good. Exactly. Martin St. Louis was great, and he was
But he could also hold his own and throw a body around if he had to.
So, I mean, so what's impressive about Cole Caufield is
everything.
He's got speed. He's got hands for days.
He's got great hands, I think.
His hockey, he's not a great playmaker. He's an okay playmaker. He's not a great playmaker. He can dangle a bit.
He's kind of the opposite of Zegras, if we're going to talk about the playmaking abilities.
Yeah, I think in his teammates, and the other people at the draft raved about him. They said he is probably they're like, he's the greatest guy on our team. Of course he can score, but like they say, he's sneaky elusive and he's pretty fast. And so in 64 games in the U.S. national under-18 team for the U.S. development program, he had 72 goals and 28 assists for 100 points. 100 points in 64 games. And to kind of put that into perspective, he broke the record of Clayton Keller for most points in a season. He also broke Phil Kessel's goal scoring record in the U.S. National Development Program. So he has scored the most goals, and that record was set in 2005 when Kessel was there. And he also broke Austin Matthews' record for most goals in a season, which I think was 55 in 2014-2015, and he scored
he not
72.
Only broke that record, he blew it out of the water.
He destroyed it. Cole Caufield is the best pure goal scorer in this draft, and he might be the best pure goal scorer we've seen in some time.
Oh, absolutely. His shot, I mean, I don't even know who to describe it to.
Greg, what are the chances we look back at this draft 5 years from now and say Caufield should have went 1?
I wouldn't say one. I wouldn't say one because to get an elite talent like Hughes as a center is probably the most valuable thing. But we could look back and in 5 years, maybe and say,
why wasn't he 3?
The production. Well, I mean, I'm going to stretch it, and by no means is this a serious thing. But you could look back maybe in 5 years, and what if in 5 years he's done more than Capo Caco? What if in 5 years he's done more than Turcotte, who probably gets picked at 3?
Yeah.
Like, I could say maybe in 3 years you go back and say, wow, Cole Caufield probably should have been a top 5 pick. He fell to us at 6. Oh, Cole Caufield should have probably been a top 3 pick. He fell to us at 6. But I can't say that for certain because like you say, he's playing with kids right now. And when you put him in a game with adults, the game changes. But from watching his tape, he sees a spot, he picks it out, he shoots, and it goes exactly where he wants it.
Oh, it's incredible.
Whether there's one person in front of him or 4.
And it doesn't matter how close they are to him either. If that puck's at his feet, he's putting some pepper behind it. It's going top shelf.
All day. And the more people in front of him, the better, because at that point, they're trying to get in front of him and they're screening their own goalie.
And it's like the lane's never closed for him, pretty much.
Greg, the fact that the kid is 5'7", 163 pounds, and blew Austin Matthews' record out of the water, like, that's insane. Like, you put that kid in front of me and you said which 3 guys in front, and you got this short guy, a tall guy, and another tall guy, and you say this kid broke the record, I'll be like, yeah, right, that's insane. And
the thing is you put those 3 guys in front of me, a short guy, a medium guy, and a tall guy, and you give me their point totals and a couple pieces of tape. I'm picking from the tape and the point totals, not how tall they are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. That I'm just saying, based on looks, you would never think this guy would score 72 goals, but there he is.
And that reminded me too. Who I was trying to think of a shot that he reminds me of. Austin, you just said it. Austin Matthews.
How quickly he shoots from up here.
How quickly he gets the puck off from out of nowhere and shows barely any motion from it, and all of a sudden, boom, he's going shelf or he's blowing it by on blocker side. It's just incredible to watch. You watch 3 minutes of highlights for this guy. He can protect the puck for his size. He's able to get around guys quickly, even though, granted, we're looking at amateur talent. However, he has these goals because he has a special ability. His ability is shooting, and he's got a good slap shot too from everything that I watched. He put that puck, if you imagine Ferk, he doesn't have the power of Ferk, but he has the accuracy of Ovi from what I watched. And that's just a broad opinion, maybe a little aggressive in how I'm wording that, but the way he was able to put the puck where he wanted to, whether it be a wrist shot or a slap shot, the dude's it's impressive. And it's something that Detroit does not have.
Yeah, I think the other half of it is it's been reported that his work ethic is like Larkin's.
Yep.
He's the first one on the ice, last one off the ice. Once practice is done, he's taking shot practice. He's scoring goals. He'll make goalies stay with him to practice shooting, and he's constantly working on his forearm strength and his wrist strength, and that's where his power's at.
Mm-hmm. He does special wrist workouts just to work on his wrist strength for shooting.
And the fact that this is not being said enough, the fact that he's going to the University of Wisconsin and going to play for the Badgers, like, he's going to at least play 1 year there, probably 2 or 3, and then you'll get an older guy that's already played against older players, and he might even be ready for the NHL. And the one thing that people don't see here, though, you could run the risk of him not signing with you. That's the one thing about college players that you kind of have to be aware of.
Yeah, but you're taking that risk with any player you draft at this point. Yeah, that's how the NHL is now.
Caufield is eager, though. He just wants to get drafted, and he wants to go. And he'll go to the University of Wisconsin, and he could be a one and done, like Larkin was a one and done at Michigan. It just depends on how he does in the NCAA. But I think between Caufield and Zegras, I would not be sad if we drafted either of them. But Caufield, I think, is my guy because it frees you up to possibly make a trade, make an Athanasiou trade, or make a trade of one of your goal scorers and point getters, because you can feel safe that you've got another one tucked away, possibly ready to come up and take their place, so you can maybe rebuild them faster.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fact that you could have, Zadina on one side of the umbrella and Caufield on the other side of the umbrella for 2 one-timers, not just one, that starts to give you a pretty good power play in the future.
I think that, in my opinion, the smarter move is continue. I mean, you have more wiggle room when it comes to picking up a goal scorer in free agency per se, but I think that if you have a guy like this, it's kind of who was it the Islanders drafted? Was it last year or 2 years ago? That was another top scoring winger.
Wahlstrom, right?
Yes, Oliver Wahlstrom. That's who it was. The pure goal scorer like that, you kind of want to have, and on a team that hurts for scoring goals, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah, and like Tyler said, if you've got Zadina, who's a left shot on one side, and you've got Caufield, who's a right shot on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's going to murder a team right there.
And especially for the poor luck that Detroit has had in getting a great right-handed shot. I mean, you look at Brunner going back a couple of years, the one and done, and then you've got Polkinen, who never came to much of anything, and then now you've got Furk.
Yeah.
Having a guy like this being able to come in, what his background is. Granted, the kid's 18 years old and things could happen, but those 3 names that I just mentioned, they didn't have this buildup. So it, as much as a center would be fantastic if Velino works out, he's there next year, if not this year. And then you have 2 years from now, maybe 3. We're talking about Cole Caufield with Larkin and Zadina for a power play unit. And Mantha and Hronek.
Stop. So I think we're going to move on to our couple questions we got from Twitter, and then we'll wrap up. So the first question is, and they're both from Jay Croft on Twitter at Warmchord Music, asks, what do you think it would take for Yzerman to land Trouba? Let's assume a long-term deal isn't a factor, which would significantly increase Winnipeg's return. Is this where Athanasiou gets moved? So I'll put it this way. If you get an agreement in place that Trouba will sign with your team, I'll say you're going to have to give up a piece like Athanasiou. You're going to have to give up probably a high second pick.
Yep.
And you are going to have to give up a prospect. And I think 3 pieces could get it done, because Winnipeg knows that Trouba doesn't want to go there or stay there.
Yeah. I don't know, because Detroit's not going to be giving up. I don't know if they'd really be dealing a prospect in a trade like this one, because that means you're having to give up a forward. Because when you look at their defense right now, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room that they have, as we just talked about a little bit ago. So I would almost have to say it'd be 2 draft picks and a positional player to try to make a move like that happen.
Could you give up Athanasiou, and could you give up, say, a guy like Joe Hicketts?
I don't think Hicketts is going to get it done, though. I mean, Hicketts is a depth 7D guy.
If you've got a guy I think you'd have to have someone that's at the front end of an entry-level deal or not signed yet to an ELC, because Hicketts is, 22 years old?
Yeah, something like that.
So you're running the risk of him being he only signs his tender for a single year, and then you have to replace that production that you're giving up with Trouba. And Hicketts is, like, to your point, he's not going to necessarily be the guy that can do that.
Yeah, so I think your comparable trade you're probably going to be looking at is what happened between Tampa and New York for Ryan McDonagh. Tampa got McDonagh and JT Miller, and they gave the Rangers Nemestikov, Libor Hajek, Brett Howden, a first and a conditional second. So that's a lot. Now, they did get JT Miller and Ryan McDonagh, so you got a pretty good second, third line guy in JT Miller, and Ryan Dunna, who was one of Tampa's probably best. I mean, you're trying to beat out Hedman, but he was a good defenseman for Tampa, and he's still going to be good. So you probably don't need to throw in the first round pick, but you're going to have to give up 3 or 4 pieces to try and get Trouba from Winnipeg.
All right, say there's no agreement in place. Do you just trade Athanasiou for him straight up or no?
If there's no agreement,
trade.
See, to do that though, you're potentially giving away Athanasiou for nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, that's
at that point. So no, I mean they'd have to get Trouba and something else.
Athanasiou's on his end of a 1-year deal, and he's going to be restricted as well.
So you're trading saying rights for rights,
essentially.
I mean, I guess.
I don't.
Without a verbal, it's hard to make any kind of deal, I think.
That he's going to sign. He's going to sign with Detroit, Trouba.
Yeah,
I would make the deal, and because there's only one way you can do this. If you want to draft and develop, okay, that's fine. But you're going to have to make trades at some point, and you're going to have to take some chances. Now, is that something Yzerman wants to do in his first year? Maybe not.
However, did it in Tampa.
He did do it in Tampa, and it did work out for him. They got to the conference finals, I think, a year into when he left. So, or maybe it was 2 years after he got there. They got to the conference finals against the Bruins. They got to game 7 of the conference finals. And if you're going to make decisions, you're going to have to make at least a hard decision and take a chance. And so that's why I would say if you don't know if Trouba's going to stay, but you still think he could be a part of it, you could try to sell him on it. And then halfway through the year, say, hey, look, here's your long-term deal. Do you want it or not? And if not, you trade him at the deadline.
I mean, if anything, I don't think Trouba's going to go the 7 or 8. I could see him pulling a Larkin because he's 25 years old and only wanting to do a 5 or a 6-year deal.
Yeah.
Or even 4, because that takes him right into the middle of his prime. Granted, for defenders, it could be a little bit different. I don't have the fancy stats pulled up for what the decrease is for defenders necessarily, but I think it's more of a tricky situation with him being, I think, 25, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
So your ideal would be a 7-year deal, and then you can work with it from there, depending on how his production is up to that point. But I mean, for what Detroit needs, I mean, we kind of hit on this with a Karlsson type. Karlsson's 28 years old.
Yep.
You take those 3 years off for a guy like Trouba. If you can get away with getting rid of like 2 second-round picks, maybe this year, next year, and I feel like Athanasiou might be too much at that point. But if you're going 2 high-round picks, but I don't know. That one's tough to me.
Well, we'll go on to the last question, then we'll wrap it up tonight. Do we see some changes to the Wings scouting staff following the draft? He said it makes sense there wasn't a change so close to the draft, but do you expect Steve to bring in some of his own team during the summer? So, I mean, yeah, sure. I don't think you're going to see a huge change. And you're going to see a new assistant coach. We already got Verbeek in. Mm-hmm. You're going to see some changes come down the line, but I'm not sure how much it's going to affect scouting, because what we would have got or liked to have gotten was Al Murray, and he stayed in Tampa. So
but he's only got 1 year left.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say the Wings have the Wings have a pretty good scouting department. I just think it was some of the choices that were made were a little subject, but you'll probably see some new scouts come in. I mean, every GM likes to bring some of their own guys in that have worked in the past and that want to move on to a different position, to a better position or higher pay rate or whatever. So I think you'll see some guys come in, but I don't think it'll be anything super notable.
I think the biggest thing to watch for is what happens after the draft, and to see if, for one, I don't think anyone's going to be coming that Stevie may know this year, because the guys that he had in Tampa, I think, are all on contract through next year. I think the thing this season to watch and keep an eye on is whether or not anyone bolts to go with Kenny over in Edmonton, because then Stevie's hands getting forced.
Tyler Wright seems to be a possibility.
Yeah, I think Wright would look more to try to go for a bigger role, not necessarily just because being at the assistant level.
So I think you'll see more people brought in if people choose to leave to go with Holland.
Yeah, but I also think that Yzerman's reputation is kind of preceding himself and what he did with Tampa. So then the fact that we haven't seen any movement yet is probably more promising for how things are going to look, especially for, like, to your point, how things have looked the last couple of years in regards to their actual drafting. So
yeah.
I personally, I don't see a whole lot going on.
No, I don't see a whole lot either. I don't see a whole lot either this year. Next year might be a different story, and obviously things do change. But I don't see a major change. I think the change in philosophy might be different. There might be a different philosophy where Ken Holland was trying to get bigger guys. With Rasmussen and Svechnikov and even Cholowski, he was getting bigger guys. I don't know if that's going to hold true.
I'll go back to Mantha.
But yeah, and Mantha too as well. Yeah, so I don't know if that's going to hold true.
Guys.
What's going to go on with that? But
I'm going to get your guys' final thoughts, and we'll wrap it up. We'll start with you, Tyler.
You can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91. I remembered again.
That's your final thought, is that they can just follow you on Twitter?
Well, I mean,
he was so focused on remembering his Twitter handle this time around.
My final thoughts, if you must, is hopefully we can get to the draft very soon, and we can start talking about it, and then the season comes, because I'm already sick of not watching the Red Wings on TV.
Ryan?
We're less than 3 weeks away from the draft. Fuck Boston. Go Blues, Gloria all the way. I still think Blues in 6, by the way.
Me too.
But no, I mean, it's another year that's promising for the Wings. I know we're going to go more in depth here in the next 2 weeks or so, right before the draft hits. But it's a promising draft class. The two guys we talked to tonight could make an immediate impact, maybe not this coming season, but 2 years from now, which is the window that I think we've been beaten to death in regards to where the Wings could start making a difference. So I don't think it really matters who they end up picking at number 6 this season. They're going to be a guy, hopefully.
You're getting a quality player.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not too worried if it's the two of the guys we mentioned, even if it's the other guys that we talked about and didn't really go into detail on, it's not going to be a bad thing. So there's a lot of promise leading into the offseason, which I think we've been preaching for a while. So we'll see what happens. And then Twitter handle RDRyan33.
My final thoughts are the same as Ryan's, basically. Down with Boston, long live St. Louis. I really hope they win. They deserve it. I would really be very sad to see Brad Marchand get anywhere near the Stanley Cup again. So
and for Layla.
Yes.
But you can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You can follow the Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. You can find our podcast pretty much everywhere. Just go to Google and Google Grindline Podcast to find all the places that we're at. Apple is doing something weird coming up. They're taking all the different sections of iTunes and making them their own app. So we will be on the podcast Apple app, I assume.
Isn't
eventually
podcast already an app by itself, though?
I don't know. But we'll be there. We'll be on Apple in some form or fashion. But you can also find our merch shop if you go to redbubble.com and search the Grind Line, our merch is there. We do still have that shirt up for supporting women's hockey, so you can go buy that. Some of the proceeds, portion of the proceeds will go toward that. We only make like $3 or $4 a shirt, so it's at $3 or $4 a shirt that will go toward the women's hockey fund.
Mm-hmm.
But I